Welcome to Forum Crashers, the internet advice show for the forums we were never invited to. I am your host, Steve Messenger, and I am here with Gerald Waldrop.
Hi. I was never invited to any forums before. But I'd like to welcome you all to this. Can I do that?
Yeah.
You're the host.
Yeah, go for it. I was never invited to much of anything myself either. So
that's why we're here.
That's exactly why we're here. So thanks for joining us. This is going to be our advice show for certain forums that we've pirated, more like crept through, ghosted our way in.
Definitely creeping.
Yeah, just seeing some of the questions that are out there that folks are asking on the internet, looking for some advice, and I'm too lazy to type, but I am not lazy enough to not set up an entire studio in a basement and record my interactions with someone else.
It's all a matter of focus, really.
Yeah, and focus is something I don't have. But we do have some questions here that we're going to go through. And if you want to, feel free to comment down below in the comment section. Give us your 2 cents on this. If you want to go check these out, these are all available on Reddit. We ripped it from Reddit. I wanted to make that the name of the show, but I felt like a lawsuit would happen. So this section is going to be called Ripped from Reddit.
Also, subquote, fair use.
Fair use. Everything's fair use. No copyright claims here. So, Gerald, you are our resident D&D expert. You've been playing for how many years now?
20, roughly 20.
20 years.
Years, yeah.
And so you've got a fair amount of experience. I've dabbled here and there, and we play Friday nights at 11 on Twitch. You can check us out there and also on iTunes with Myths and Mystics. But we're going to kind of put our heads together to see if we can help some folks out here. So this first question comes from Foul Knave B, and the question is, can sorcerers be socially inept?
That's an interesting question. I've seen a lot of socially inept sorcerers, so I guess the short answer is yes.
I thought it was a give me. That was pretty much a but I imagine they have a high charisma score for a lot of their stuff.
Right. Well, yeah. So the default is that charisma is your first force of personality. So anyone with a high charisma score who wants to is going to naturally be able to influence other people just with presence or with speech. It's certainly understandable if someone's not actually practiced at speaking publicly. You could be completely shy, even though you have a wonderful presence. As a matter of fact, I've seen some interviews with artists who are really, really sheltered. They only come out and have that presence when they're on stage. Otherwise, they are very awkward and very, very to themselves, very introverted.
So you're saying that sorcerers are awkward and introverted until they got to shoot a fireball out of their face?
That makes perfect sense to
me. It makes a lot of sense to me as well.
Yeah.
So, Foul Knave B, I hope that answered your question for you. So definitely maybe they can be socially inept.
I want to just spin off it real quick because it was interestingly stated in a discussion I had a long time ago. Charisma doesn't necessarily mean that you are liked. You, because of your force of personality, you can, if you wish, make people hate you. You're good at evoking a response in those you interact with. So that's why it's used for intimidation or persuasion. The effect you want to have, you're better at achieving.
Including shooting fireballs.
Right, because fireballs come from the heart.
Well put. All right, we got another one here. I like this question. This one was a little bit more long form. This one comes from Frost Dragon 57. Frost Dragon states first that one of my players has an assassin after them. Common problem, right? And he says, I'm struggling with how to introduce said assassin to a group that never really checks their surroundings. They think they are gods. I want to give my players the best possible scare. So I guess the problem there being that assassins are usually sneaky, and he wants to play up the situation with a bunch of people who are pretty aloof.
Okay, I like that. It really, you have a world to work with. That's the fun. I think one of the most fun parts of being a DM. Not necessarily just the goal of scaring all your characters, but thinking of the clever and inventive ways you can really challenge them. So if they think they're gods, I'm guessing they're getting to be higher level, and usually that comes about when you haven't actually scared them sufficiently in the past. And it's really, I think there's a subtext to the question, and that is the type of game that you want to run. that players like to feel like heroes, and that's perfectly okay. And that's the reason we all play. We don't want to be mundane and feel like every inch of the way is always a struggle. I ran and played games like that, and they can be their own fun and their own challenge. But
have you ever had an assassin after you? That's a fair question.
aside from Vanya, let's see. I've been stalked by a rogue. Not
Common
necessarily-
problem. Common problem.
Yeah, she was something. No, this character, well, is on a whole nother story. So I think if you want to kind of change the tone of the game, one, think about why you're wanting to do that with the characters, because it's going to change the answer. There are definitely fun ways to introduce an assassin, and I think that if the understanding is there in your game that death should be on the table, that's going to be one key difference that will change a player's attitude from I'm a god to I'm mortal, I'm powerful, but I still have to watch out. I can still drop, I can still die. If death is on the table, and that's usually a conversation that you should have with your players as you go into a game. Some really story-driven games that can be very upsetting, death of a character. But I think that that's something that could be helpful if you have that type of campaign where you know it's an option. Don't be afraid to kill one. An assassin is named that for a reason. They can be quite deadly. The fact that you can roll in, you can set up any number of traps, divide and conquer. That they shouldn't be able to see a rogue that has expertise in stealth at all. The assassin stalking them should know a perfect place to set up an ambush for one of the characters, would probably be able to assess their abilities and see which one's the softest target that they can take out first. And double critical hit damage on an assassinate can definitely take out some players in one hit. You can certainly arrange it if you don't want the character to necessarily die, for others to be nearby.
You mean like a non-lethal assassination?
No, where if they're nearby enough to keep them from bleeding out within 2 rounds.
Yes.
That's the save.
Let me ask you this. I mean, I think, that all plays into it. I think some of it's the theatrics of it too, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think about if you have a situation, maybe there's a beloved NPC that maybe they take out the NPC before they take out the characters? Maybe the bolt was intended for one of them. Maybe they're doing their trades or whatever. They're getting some swill at the local bar, and the next thing you know, the bartender takes a bolt to the face.
I think if they like the bartender, that's a good way to create drama. I don't think that's necessarily a good way to scare them.
No.
I think they know. It's difficult to divorce completely as a player your knowledge of the game. I mean, you can't always know for sure that the bartender isn't a retired 20th level fighter. But even though the term 20th level fighter doesn't exist in the game world, they probably have a pretty good idea of your default NPCs. They adapt everyone in the world, and that if someone gets taken out in one shot, they're likely to assume this was some sort of pleb and just someone who was going to die when they got hit by an arrow either way.
Destined.
Unless you have previously established, or you go about establishing that character as someone powerful. And I think that's something you probably do in tandem with introducing a character, an NPC, and making them part of the story, and make them beloved, but show them that they're inept, or that they're not inept at the same time. But I generally wouldn't go the route. I mean, if they're high level, they're gonna have access to raise dead anyway. So you can let them work for it. Especially if the assassin can trap one character, kill another, and then is stalking the other one, and the other one has to run to a temple or try to escape and make their way to a temple to get their friend raised in safety before the assassin gets to them. That can create some seriously scary drama there.
I like it, especially with that race against time kind of thing. So cool. Yeah, got a couple options there for you. I like it. Last question I got here. This is going to be from my players find me. Is how do you help your players when they can't agree on where to go?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yes. You've got your party who I'll give you a hypothetical here. hypothetically, I actually heard this happen on another podcast I was listening to. There was, of course, a story mission, which was, all the characters were on board with, and they're all pushing that direction. And then one of them finds out that a family member is in peril. And they're torn with the fact that, yes, the story is pushing in this direction, but his character, if you were truly role-playing it, would give up everything to go save his family member.
Yeah.
But obviously that makes for
Conflict.
a little bit of a conflict there.
Yeah, well, that can be very good. The stories are the most interesting when they have an amount of conflict and tension. And if you can introduce that between the players in a way that can keep a story moving forward, I've certainly seen that in games I've played. I would say introduce the conflict, but you should probably, before you introduce it, have a compelling reason for the party to stay together, one, and to go in a particular direction. I have let players, in my games, we take a little bit longer in the drama. It's not quite as fast-paced as our podcast, but I have let them deliberate to the point that they're still enjoying it. Because some players will absolutely enjoy that conflict and being in that moment and trying to just exercise those social skills, even amongst themselves. And I've had players that just detest having to make an argument in game about where they're going. They just want the kind of surface level adventure, not into that deep interpersonal character conflict.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a question that's best asked of the group. Do you want to be able to argue this out, or do you like to be able to go in a certain direction? And as a DM, you always have to be cognizant of the type of game that your players enjoy, because there are a lot of different aspects to D&D and things that the players enjoy. And you need to be aware of that as a DM. There are a lot of good forums about the types of games you can run in the different pillars of role-playing games that you should be aware of.
Yeah, and it's it can be real difficult when you've got someone who feels that strongly that their character would not do this thing, or would not go that way. I guess with what we do, like we don't have the luxury of taking half an hour to decide, are we going to go this way or that way? I would say if we're playing more long form, be like, hey. If me as the DM is not interested in your conversation, be like, hey, we're taking a 15-minute break. You can all figure this out outside. When we come back in, I want to know what we're doing.
Yeah, if you're doing it for entertainment, some audiences won't be as entertained by that either.
Well, actually, we did have a situation at one point where your character in Myths and Mystics, Zarin, found out that Vanya had killed somebody who wasn't necessarily someone that he deemed a just kill.
Yeah. And
you had that moral conflict, and for the whole episode, you were fairly passive-aggressive with your comments about her.
I was also fairly inebriated.
It happens. Yeah. But I'll say that, at the end of that episode, that was the comment I made to you and Natasha was, hey, I'm all for the fact that there's some conflict here, but next time we play, if y'all don't have it figured out, I'm going to figure it out for you. And it honestly was a bit of both. Like there was a situation that kind of played out, and I think it kind of resolved itself in game. But I think sometimes that's a conversation you got to have with your.
Yeah, sometimes conversations are best taken offline, at least not during the game. If it's possible for you to take the break. It's okay in some situations if you have the luxury of the time to split the party. Generally, the players don't want to do that, but if they're going to, I have run individual sessions where I need to bring them back in because I'm focused on telling the most interesting and compelling story, something that the players enjoy, and I often have players in my games that really love getting into their characters and their stories. So I will always go by character compulsion first, but it's perfectly normal and acceptable to be like, all right, this is slowing down the game. Yeah, let's find a way to figure that out and discuss it between sessions.
And worst case scenario, you're the DM. Be the voice of God and just boom in there. Take control of the situation. Tell them what they're doing. It's your game anyways, right? You're the one who spent all week coming up with this stuff, dreaming it, figuring it out.
Great idea, roll.
Yes.
Of course it's a good idea.
Bend them to your will. That's obviously the best answer. That's always made plenty of friends for me. And yeah, so I think that's where we're going to end this week's episode, friends. I appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure that you tune in 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday nights. Check us out on Twitch. That's when we play our game. And then also, if you have any questions that you want us to tackle and answer, feel free to send those questions to mythsandmystics@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. We love you. We'll see you next time.